on January 24th. First item on the agenda, discussion of potential action regarding approval of the minutes. Whole darn thing anyway, of December 8th, joint monthly meeting. Any additions, subtractions? Motion to approve the minutes. Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's see here. Item 2, discussion of potential action regarding rate design working group. I understand you guys met.
Yeah, do you want me to take?
Anything? Well, if you have something to tell us, sure.
Sure. And this, this hopefully will be on the agenda, as we move forward. So a few of us met this past week, and, it'd been a couple years since we had kind of gone at this. And if you remember, COVID happened, and we were getting to a good place with it. And COVID happened, and we kind of stopped meeting, and we didn't feel like it was right to change the rates during that time. So I wanted to rekindle this. We went over kind of what the ideas were before and all the brainstorming. I had updated some spreadsheets, and we had some good discussions about where we want to go. We're going to have a meeting probably in March. We had some scheduling conflicts with people on vacation and problems. So we'll meet again in probably early March. But there's a lot of staff work that needs to go into it now that we've rekindled it. So there's a lot of work on my end. There's some double checking that I need Amy and finance to look at the spreadsheets, to verify and to double check cells in the work. Because if we get it wrong, it could, it could have bad consequences. So, but the idea, remember, is similar to the power company's rate structure, where you kind of tier up and tier down based on the demand in the given month, instead of this quarterly seasonal aspect that we have now. So our goal is for maybe the March or April meeting, as we come into the budget process, that we'll have something more concrete to move on for the budget, A, and 2, some materials for the board and also for the customers to understand why we're doing this and what's going on. So that's our goal for, let's say, the March meeting into the April meeting, as we start doing we start getting into it. One question that we had, David, maybe you can answer it quickly. To do something like this, and we kind of decided that we didn't, would you hold a public hearing before? I mean, I kind of said that the financial meeting was the public hearing for something like this, but if we're going to change the rates, let's say during a work session, would you ever hold a public hearing to kind of involve the public at all? I don't think we need to on a legal standpoint, but I wanted to hear that from you.
So legally speaking, a public hearing is a properly noticed, and it's much more formalistic. I don't think you don't need that from a legal standpoint. But practically speaking, you want to do public outreach. You want to make sure that there's, call it a public workshop. You're inviting the public, you're informing the public that this is going to be discussed, so they can ask questions. And at that point, and maybe, if you want to be able to change something, who knows, from the feedback. So the first time they're learning about it isn't at the official public hearing, at the annual financial meeting.
That was kind of the group's feeling too. So we can hold something and try to advertise and try to get someone here, but we don't need to formally go through the process. That's fine. But that's it. Is there any questions? That's really the update. And hopefully before in March, we're hoping to have some better concrete numbers for the board and bring something that we can start thinking about for budget season.
Hey, John, it's Lars.
Yep.
John, is this something that you do because it hasn't been done in a while, or you do it periodically? What's the process?
I think rate design is something you do want to maintain and look at, and you just don't want to stay stagnant. This really came up because it has been in place for a long time. I feel like maybe the capabilities of our billing software then versus now are different. Amy, would you concur with that? We've had this rate structure for a better part of 18, 20 years probably, or more.
No, not that long. And we are with the same accounting system right now, but I think at that time it was new for us. And so we are much more adept at using it effectively at this point. Combined with, again, the concept as applies to water and sewer was new at that point. To have a more demand-based, we had seasonal, but we didn't have demand as a component. So I think revisiting is a good idea. And we do have some additional flexibility that we didn't have or weren't able to really put in place last time around.
So,
but it's not quite that long.
And then, to be honest with you, when I sat through some of the power company, they have to file with the PUC and all that, I found that started to get my wheels turning with how they were doing it. And since we, we have the same demand curve exactly. So I thought it might fit our, I got the light bulb went off my head. Hey, can we do the similar type of rate structure based more on demand, not on financial quarters?
Okay, thank you.
All right, are we all set on that one? Anybody else have any questions? Okay, item 3, discussion and potential action regarding employee housing. We've got some ideas, do we?
Update is
other than ones that have already been discussed.
An update is, I believe we reached out recently to the trustees of the Harbor Church, and we got asked to be placed on one of their meetings and to see if they'd be open to the idea of changing the agreement that allows for that area where the parking lot is to be used for a parking lot. So currently it's restricted as that right of way is restricted to be used as a parking lot. So we're seeing if they'd be interested in at least talking to the sewer commission about, so that process is happening. So hopefully, at the next meeting, maybe we'll be invited to one of theirs, and Dylan and I have volunteered to go and discuss. If another board member would like to go, we'll let anyone know when that would be.
Well, I have a question. Do we have to use that parking lot for access? And because of, there's other possibilities for access to the land. Have we looked at that? We talked about that, I don't know, I want to say 5-6 years ago, and we were going to look at rights of way and other access points and so forth and so on. And if memory serves me right, David was going to take a look at it, and I don't know that we ever got any farther down the road on that.
So just briefly on that, the title exam and whatnot had shown a lot of different restrictions, and what we had kind of come to the conclusion was, the path of, least resistance at the moment is probably using that access for the parking area, just getting that agreement probably, amended, so to speak, or come to a new agreement about it, seemed to be the path of least resistance. There were other possibilities, sure, but that were going to involve a lot of different permitting with CRMC, and not to say that it's impossible, but it was, let's explore. I thought we agreed in I don't remember what month this was, but this was the avenue we were going to try first to see if we can just get that agreement changed, which should be relatively easy enough compared to
Well, anyway, I was thinking that probably CRMC would probably be amenable to work with us on this, thing that's providing housing for employees and so forth and so on. I would imagine they're pretty sensitive to that also. And I don't think that we'd be, how shall I say, you know, upsetting the apple cart too much as far as coastal resources would be involved in, other than getting permits to put it in. I mean, plenty of things are happening with CRMC around on Block Island and happen every year. It just seems to me like, you know, I guess we can go to this meeting. My standpoint is on it is I don't want to sit on my hands for another couple of years. I think this is something that needs to be addressed here pretty quickly, because first of all, it's the housing isn't going to happen overnight. And so I just think that we should be looking at, I don't know, I just think that we should have all our cards out on the table and see, you know, how it pans out. And if that means start permitting process with CRMC while we look at other options, I don't see the harm in that.
You know, I've spoken, I believe Dylan has spoken with Jim Jeremiah on this, and they're really, you know, and Dylan and I have walked around the, you know, the facility and everything, and it, you know, accessing that part without going off someone else's property or through the sewer plant, you know, through the clarifier is very difficult. You know, you can't really sneak by the, you know, the belt filter press building. You can't go around, you know, the garage. I'm looking at a map, and it'd be hard to go up by the pump station because of the grade there. So it's just, you know, Jim, Dylan, and I think all agreed that from an engineering standpoint, accessing that area is difficult. And Adrian House Lane is clearly, you know, is already there. It's built and everything else. So I think that was the thinking, Peter.
Well, like I said, I don't know if I was involved in that part of the thinking, probably not, but I went up there years ago with Chris Blaine and Steve Draper, and can't think of who else was there. There was another person, and you know, the grade getting up by the pump station is certainly not insurmountable, and the rest of the grades really aren't that all that drastic either. All I'm saying to you is just it may be the path of least resistance, but I don't think it is causing a problem to you know, get a permit from CRMC, see what it's going to take. I think we should be looking at all angles of this. That's my opinion. Besides that, if we lose our parking lot there, you know, that's $20,000 a year. You know, and just my thoughts. If we went out another access, we maintain our parking lot and income of $20,000 a year, and you know, that's been a pretty successful little endeavor that we had there, and so that's my thoughts. I mean, it's financial as well as convenience.
I don't think you'd lose your parking lot access. The agreement says we can only cross Adrian House Lane or for use of a parking lot. The sewer commission would be asking for another use for affordable housing, not you know, you could still keep the parking lot. There's space for a parking lot and maybe something else, but you're not saying, hey, this isn't, you go in there saying, hey, could we amend this for an additional use? You see?
Yeah, that's going to be the goal, at least in my mind as well. This is Dylan speaking. I just wanted to make it that clear. And then but I am willing to look into all options available, write them down, and just get everyone's thought and input on that and see what our options are for that. The other point we needed to determine, and this might be a question for David, was the signing of the letter, the authority to, just as a formality, should we, is it a general signature, the water and sewer, or do we need to have something specific there?
I believe the vote the last time was to leave it to the superintendents and staff. So I think the two of you
Okay.
could sign it and
All right.
we can go.
Very, very good. Yeah, so we'll just get that together and we'll move forward with that. But I definitely want to be clear that we will, the goal is to not lose the parking lot in that end, so.
To not lose it.
Well, that's a good
Yeah.
goal.
Okay.
How much, Peter? Peter? It's Sam Doyle.
Yes.
How much, how
Hi.
many acres? How much acreage are we talking about?
Oh, I don't know. We basically went up there with a 100-foot tape measure, Tom, and did some very rough calculations. I don't know. Jim might have actually been there. I don't know. But we went up there with a tape measure. There appears to be more than enough parking for the building that I had in my mind anyway. And
Okay.
and other than a passageway through the parking lot to Dylan's point, if we can get an agreement, that's what we're after.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know the exact acreage, Tom, is the answer to your question.
Thank you.
Oh, boy. Let's see here. Any other comments about housing? I guess the next point has to do with Chris Warfel's letter. I have not seen this letter, so I'm interested to hear about it.
Susie, you have a copy of that letter in the packet?
Yes, it is in the packet. Right after the minutes, I believe. We received it a few weeks ago. I believe John got a copy as well. The town council has already put it on their agenda and discussed it. Well, we did not invite Chris today because we wanted to discuss it first, but it seems to be identifying something that we're already working on with this project of reaching out to the board of trustees at the church.
Susie, do you have it open on your screen right now? You might be able to just share it for those who have the ability to view it. I know Pete won't be able to, but we could, at least for the public that is here, know what we're talking about. If not, I could do it. I happen to have it.
I've got the letter open.
I have two screens
do
going,
too.
so I have to figure out how to do that.
Hey, while we wait, Marianne, what was, I know the town council had this on their agenda. What was the general, feelings of the town? Could you share the general feelings of that meeting or what the resolution was of this?
Sure. So the council, it was discussed briefly at the council meeting. Also, the council had scheduled a forum with some folks that are looking at some housing and affordable attainable housing on the island. That meeting was canceled for the time being. And the council has a work session scheduled with the housing board on February 2nd. I know Chris Welfel, based on that letter, also requested a bunch of maps and information via GIS, and I know staff is currently working on that. And unfortunately, I don't have in front of me that particular document, the GIS document. I gave it over to Jen. And I think it included property owned by the water and sewer company, and he asked for that information.
Yeah, that's why I was asking whether we might have just been included on some of these things that he was asking for in his letter.
So there might not be much for us to do then if we're going to be included with the town stuff. But, just to summarize, we don't need to bring it up. We can just summarize it, that basically he's looking for an inventory of all, call it publicly owned, land. So the town's land, the power company, water company, sewer company, land trust, nature conservancy, I think airport got, a letter as well. That could possibly maybe sort of be developed into affordable housing and, without regard to what legal restrictions may be on the property. But I think that was something he wanted cataloged as well as what those restrictions were. And again, the Low and Moderate Income Housing Act allows you to, I won't say bypass it. It's more of consolidate and create a smoother path through the planning and zoning aspects of those type of restrictions. But that doesn't eliminate, say, an open space restriction if there's some private company or private entity that owns that. So needless to say, he was looking kind of for a title exam to go along with it. It was my read of it. If we're being included with the town stuff, which I believe a lot of our facilities are partially town owned, or it varies depending what the property is, it would make sense not to be duplicative of effort and just allow that to play out. And if there's follow-up, we can deal with the follow-up, was going to be my suggestion.
Well, so I guess from our standpoint, there's no vote to be taken. If we're going to, so if I hear you right, David, you want to respond in conjunction with the town.
Correct. Or to say we don't really need a formal response because all of our inventory, so to speak, is going to be included with the towns.
Okay.
So I'll leave it up to the board if they think we should do some kind of acknowledgement letter to that effect. But that's Susie and the chairs.
It doesn't seem to be too difficult to compose a letter to respond to Chris. And I mean, if nothing else, I think it would be the right thing to do, and to respond to him and to say, look, we're going to respond, I guess, in conjunction with the town of all the properties that we have from that are from a water and sewer perspective, or something simple. We don't have to. It doesn't have to be a long letter.
I can take care
I
of
don't
that.
care who
too.
writes the letter.
Yeah, no, Susie
Okay.
can take care of that. We can, the superintendents can sign it or the chairs can sign it. We could do a formal vote. I don't think you need it. I think, it's just kind
Okay.
of
Well,
in the normal.
if you don't think there's nothing to vote on, it doesn't seem to me.
Well, it's under
Okay.
correspondence, so you can't vote it on.
Yeah, you can't really vote on it anyway. So so I think Susie understands what she needs to do, and we're all set.
We will get it done.
Cool.
Good.
All right. Discussion and potential action regarding sewer financials and aging.
Hi, everyone.
Comments or questions, or Amy? We haven't heard from you in forever.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think I've been here, but maybe you haven't been, except for the last meeting. And so I'm happy to take any holdover questions.
Well,
But
my only point on that was just that Mona usually does it. That was all. Anyway, go ahead.
and that's been a transition that's been underway for quite some time. So you've got me back. Hi.
That's good.
We're moving back into that quiet time of year where things are relatively stable, and there's not as much happening on the revenue side. You'll see a little shifting between allocation and penalties, but most of that has been completed at this point. So you can see on the sewer side, the penalty fees of about 24,500 on a budget of 20,000, and the allocation shaking out just a little bit below the 4,000 budgeted. And then on the expenditure side, doing more of those plant investments and winter maintenance work. Obviously, Dylan can cover that in his operations report, but there's not too much to add on the sewer side. David and I probably do need to connect to get going on our next tax sale, which we had done water and sewer last year as a catch up. And so I think in an even year, we moved to sewer, David.
That is my understanding as well. Yes.
Okay, so we'll work on that and put a schedule together.
If it's that season for me pretty much everywhere. So I'm all primed and ready to go.
But I'm happy to take any questions that people might have.
All right, I gotta wander on the boat. And Tom, I guess if you take over, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes.
Tom, we lost your audio. You're not muted.
We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Well, we've got the witness protection profile, but.
Anyway, Dylan, I guess it's just aging. It's what we're our operations report.
Sure, I'll take it from there. Dylan Chase, Sewer Superintendent. I just wanted to briefly discuss the sewer operations maintenance report for December 2021. Of note, we saw about an increase of about 10 million gallons over the whole annual year, which was 10 million over the 5-year average. So we ended up the year with about 48 million total treated. Normal treated flows is around 37 to 38 million gallons. All of our process parameters were well within compliance. Everything looked good there. As far as operations maintenance, we had Walco out to install the final motor for pump 3 at Old Harbor Pump Station. The motor and pump have not been tested due to the heat exchanger failure the prior month. So the motor and fan is being rebuilt for that. Significant on 12/18, staff noted a loss of water pressure for the plant boiler. The autofill valve was replaced, called Ray Reynolds. And upon filling the boiler, the gaskets, now the boiler, mind you, was only filled with 12 pounds of pressure, and the gaskets failed in that. And the water and antifreeze started leaking out of the from underneath the jacket. As Island Heating does have the contract, I did talk to Ray about rebuilding the boiler unit. He was so busy that he passed to Oceanside Plumbing. I have to commend them. They were right on it, and they had the whole boiler cleaned and rebuilt within 3 days, and before any cold occurred that would be of concern to the facility. So our boiler has new gaskets and was cleaned. I did ask both Island Heating, or Ray, and Steve Dubois of Oceanside Plumbing what could be the cause of that failure, considering that boiler was put in 2012. And they both affirmed that the cause was likely due to the high amount of antifreeze in the system. So when that was recharged, the water and coolant that was added was far more diluted, to prevent that from occurring again. So other than that, I do want to mention that the Rhode Island DEM has resumed plant inspections. Operations and maintenance items were checked off the list by the new regulator over there, Jack. And he said all was found to be in good order. So that was good news. And he will be again reviewing or I guess inspecting the plant regularly, monthly. I'd also like to just briefly go over capital projects. The final design phases are being completed. Any excess allocation of monies for the USDA loan will go towards the refacing of the operations building. Discussions on the new Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. After discussions with the chair and with Jim Jeremiah, and as certain aspects that have been brought to light over time, considering the age of the infrastructure, we'd like to look at allocating those monies to the collection system rehabilitation and upgrades. On to billing, customers were billed for 687,000 gallons of waste treated. And we did still continue to see significant infiltration at 56% over gallons billed. All regulation aspects were met. Fourth quarter bioassay results were passed. And that's about all. Are there any questions?
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I got back on the boat here.
So I have a question, but I might be jumping the gun.
Yes.
Okay.
And it actually was not, it just, I'm looking at the statement of activity for the sewer commission. And
Sure.
and maybe Amy could answer the question as well. I see a system maintenance that we have a year to budget of 35, or no, below that. Yeah, $35,000. Is that
So,
what we have?
yeah, I can go over that. So Highview Lane, the complete overhaul on Highview Lane was not planned for, and that was placed in system maintenance. Significant failures in Old Harbor. You'll notice a few lines have gone over, the generator as well. Again, that generator meter failure was a significant cost. Again, not planned for. The grit pump failure went to system maintenance. That was not planned for. Old Harbor pump station pump failure, that was not planned for. The heat exchanger failure at Old Harbor pump station was not planned for. The motor failure on the 4th of July was not planned for. So yeah, that's where we are with that. We also had contingency overages that were not planned for with the water main failure running from Old Harbor pump station to the main facility.
Bad year.
Yep. Or well, a lot got fixed. We'll try to stay positive. That's
Okay. Moving over to water. Discussion of potential action regarding water allocation from Salt Pond Settlement Owner Association for the fire suppression system. I guess, John, that'll be a comment from you.
Sure. So the Salt Pond Settlement Homeowners Association has a fire suppression system in place. It runs off of a underground tank. From what I understand, that tank, they've had some issues with the tank, from what I understand, and it has been found dry or with little or no water in it a couple times over the past few years. They would like to hook up to the town water system. We have an available 6-inch gate valve for their purpose there. This is our first fire system allocation application since we've kind of started to realize that our allocation is limited at this point. It's my recommendation that at this point, we do not deny any fire suppression systems for 2 or 3 reasons. First reason being that fire suppression systems don't use water on a daily basis like anything else. It doesn't consume water unless there's a fire. To that point, any more fire suppression systems and better operating fire suppression systems would be of a benefit to a catastrophic situation in the summer at the water facility where you have, let's say, a fire at Salt Pond and the fire department uses 75, 80% of our tank, and then we're put into that situation. So also it's just health and safety as well. So my recommendation is that if there are any fire suppression systems that come and apply for us, we should be approving those without a doubt in my mind. If other people have ideas, that's fine. That's my idea. But for your knowledge, they don't use water on a daily basis. They will only use water unless there's a fire. And they tend to put out fires faster.
How much is the allocation?
And that's the other thing. It's under the 20,000 gallon threshold. A fire suppression system is required to purchase 15,000 gallons for the quarter. And that is under that 20,000 gallon threshold that's set forth by our rules and regs.
Right. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think we just, do we need a vote from the commission, David, on that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. We've
then
gone into, we're approving all allocation requests at the board level.
Well, unless it exceeds 20,000 gallons, right? Or you want to approve all of them?
No. The board, any allocation application that comes across my desk, I'm putting it to the board. That was a decision made by the board in August or September.
Okay.
But it's your recommendation. I'm sorry, but it's your recommendation that any fire suppression systems be approved?
Yeah. It's under the 20,000 gallon threshold. They do not use water unless there's a fire. And anyone who wants to put a fire suppression system lessens our chance of having a catastrophic fire. And actually, a fire suppression system might use a few thousand gallons, put out a fire. If the fire becomes fully involved, you're into a totally different situation in my world, and health, safety, and fire department, everything. So
so if anything, they should be encouraged, correct?
I absolutely. I think, the more buildings, especially in the downtown area, that can have fire suppression, the farther we are from catastrophe at the water plant and in town and everywhere. I'm a strong believer of fire systems averting complete failure and disaster.
Well, if there's no more comments, I'd like to make a vote that agree with John, that we approve the application, and on a going forward basis, that we approve all fire suppression systems applications for hooking to the water supply.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Tom is saying aye. For whatever reason, his audio stopped working. And I'll just note for the record that as far as authority, what you have in front of you is just this application, and the policy going forward, everyone can agree with that, but that can't be set at today's meeting because it's not on the agenda that way. So it's just commentary on it. Got that, Susie?
Got it.
Discussion potential action regarding water restrictions and conservation methods. John?
Okay. This is the start of us as a board talking about how we want to craft water restrictions, water conservation moving through the summer and into the future. I have a bullet point list here of kind of brainstorming points that I'd like for you guys to go through. And as well, there is a bunch of attachments afterwards. And I will take you through this bullet points and we can have a discussion afterwards or during if you'd like to stop me at any point in time. Susie and I did some brainstorming about and some research of how other communities are dealing with this. But in my opinion, we can't, we have to start water conservation and some restrictions at some point leading into this summer, considering the situation that we're in. We can't be denying commercial customers and not doing anything about water restrictions or conservation, in my opinion. So
John, but before you go any further, are you able to share your screen? So for the public,
with my bandwidth, I would not. I would.
I mean, I have it. I can do it. I don't know if that'll crash everyone else's though. Oh, Susie's on it.
There you go. So some of these things attach to things later on in your packet. So from a historical perspective, just so we know where we're coming from, in the early 90s, and I believe the year was 94, we were a surface water treatment facility drawing from Sands Pond as our reservoir, and it went dry. A lot of action at our level and the town council level came from that. Remember, the water board did not exist at that point, so it was mostly town actions. And essentially, there's a resolution in here. And this is where we don't want to be. And I'll read just one of the whereases here is that the filtration and storage capacity can process only 120,000 gallons per day, and the current customer demand is 140,000 gallons per day. So this is the situation we're trying to avoid at the water facility by either adjusting conservation restrictions, all of this, but that we have been in this position in the past. And I believe what's happened here, and I wasn't here for all of it. The reverse osmosis system came, we got a more secure source and treatment. We also, obviously, when it was engineered to have more water available. I feel like the board, the people, tourism, everything is kind of, and partially our rules and regs don't spell out anything for water conservation or restrictions. And I believe we had a lot of capacity available, and sometimes you're looking for revenue to pay for the projects that were done to increase that capacity. We are now in a position where we have to start looking at conserving again. But that's kind of a historical perspective of where we've been. We've been here before in a very much a worse situation. I've heard a lot of stories about it, and I do not want to get back into that spot where our demand is more than we can create especially during the peak times on weekends. Does anyone have any questions on that?
No.
There was a lot of water restrictions. I feel like people were more aware of the situation, and we need to start making people aware of our situation now. The next bullet point is public education. So, we're talking about ads in the guide or the summer times, whatever we come up with on the bottom of this, we need to put it out to the public we can't just put it in the bills because most of the people using our water in the summer don't get a bill. Let's say it's either rentals or hotel stayers or day trippers or whatever have you. They don't, so we need to get it out in the public in other ways. So that's through some ads, whether it's the chamber, real estate offices, you see sticker campaigns, stuff that we've done for wet wipes, kind of down that line of please conserve water. There are still stickers around from the 90s that I see every once in a while around the island sometimes. And they had stickers everywhere, please conserve water, stuff like that. So we're looking into getting into stuff like that. Also encouraging our homeowners, hotels to low flow shower heads, aerators to, you know, reduce the amount that any fixture can flow at any given time. This obviously is a benefit to the customer as they'll have a lower bill if they install these. And obviously with our rates the way they are, it would work out for them. Also, a bill stuffer is important, as well as the other public ideas. Something else is waterless urinals. I know Chris Warfel, who we've spoken about previous to this meeting, was pushing them in a lot of places. There are many businesses that have them and who've realized that it's economical to have waterless urinals and not have the flushing going on. There are a number of businesses that it's worked out very well. I would like to encourage more businesses who do not have them, maybe to think about installing them. I've already started speaking with some of the town facilities as well, and that's something I will continue to do. There are some areas where I think water is being wasted at some of the town facilities, and that's easily taken care of with conversations, either with Mary Ann. I've been talking with Harbor's department as well. So that's kind of that area. The next area, I mean, do you guys want to discuss, is there any other ideas? I want to hear your ideas. Is there anything else that, you know, Lars, you're with the chamber. You know, is there any other ideas that you guys have on a public education standpoint that we can do to help people conserve water?
On the rental properties, you know, the real estate agents usually have books or whatever they put out for their rentals. Can they remind people? Can we ask them to come up with some sort of a flyer or something so that, you know, to remind people who rent their homes?
That's why we put the real estate offices in there. We would probably make something up for them though that they could put in their booklet so it's uniform.
Okay.
And this,
and I have an observation. May I speak?
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. First of all, I did not know that I was on the agenda today. So I would ask that maybe you use the Block Island Bulletin Board to post agendas 48 hours in advance, which would give people the opportunity. I know you published the agenda legally, but I did not see it because I did not have you on my Secretary of State website. I thought I would be told that I was going to be on the agenda when it happened. But more to the point of what you're talking about right now, I'm wondering if the water company has any opinion on the spring-loaded faucets versus the regular lever faucets, which I see on quite a bit, and the spring ones seem to not be left on as much. I'm constantly turning those kind of faucets off, especially in commercial establishments. And I just didn't know if the water company had an opinion on that, any data, any opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I mean, I would say certainly, you know, that's something we can put on our list. Chris, what I'm envisioning here is a bill stuffer and maybe a letter with recommendations to businesses. And that certainly could go in there, spring loaded or the ones you push down. that stop on themselves. So I think that's a great idea for, nice suggestions of what businesses could do to reduce their water footprint. And I'm sure that would help. So
to that point, John, in the electric business, utility business, we did demand side energy conservation opportunities where we recovered the program costs, and that might include the incentives. I don't know. I know other water companies much bigger, look at copying that model. Have you folks any bandwidth to even consider something like that? But you'd have to go after, obviously the most wasteful things to make it cost effective. I just didn't know if this was a concept that was completely out of the realm of possibility for a small company.
Yeah, Chris, let me, are you talking about like a rebate program for certain fixtures?
Yeah, something along those lines, or anything that you would find as old school technology that you would think the economics would dictate people would take a action to change, but a lot of times it's education and they don't know. Sometimes they don't care, but if that type of program is what I'm thinking of. It could be faucets. It could be a lot of things, I think.
Yeah, I mean, some water districts will actually, purchase some low flow shower heads and put a box together and have, advertise for pickup at town hall, for instance, and buy, 100, boxes, and they have 3 aerators in them and enough to kind of outfit a home. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, and I think yes, that would be one of the examples. And I think you folks did that many years
I believe
ago.
we did it a while ago, but depending on the cost, I can look into. Hey, I believe they do sell those boxes. I believe you can get them from companies. So I certainly can look in to see what the cost is and see if it certainly is easier if it's if we're paying for it. On the other hand, on the economics, is you're trying to educate the customer. Hey, you could spend a little bit of money and save a lot and help us out in the end. So it's difficult to spend a bunch of money and then and then your customer saved it. You see what I mean? If it's too much money, it won't make sense.
Just giving away stuff, without education doesn't work. And I think economics are a really good driver for action, except for some people, they just don't care, especially certain income brackets, I'd say. Anyways, I just wanted to point that out because, given what I've been reading about the water supply issue, this is, in my business, this would be the time that type of program would be formed.
Yeah, I can look into the cost of those units and see if if they're relatively low end cost on our end, I could see us doing something like that.
I can give you my spreadsheet on waterless urinals too, if you'd like that.
Yeah, I know you're a big advocate for that for a number of years. So, I appreciate that. I think it's been a great, the places that have installed them have I've seen their bill be reduced just being able to know their trends, and after they install them, it's especially in bars or the bars, the nightclubs where you're having a lot of people go in and flush urinals. So those are the big ones.
What I like what you're saying, you've told me in the past, is your rate design is kind of indifferent to those those measures that people do, and that's a really good rate design, because if in the old days a lot of utilities were just consumption based for profit, and if you've been able to do a customer charge that covers your fixed costs and you don't have to sell a lot of water to make ends meet, that's very encouraging.
Does anyone else on the board have anything in the public education ideas? any places that Susie and I didn't reach, do you think?
I have a question, not another, it's Sandra. How many pools do we fill?
And that's kind of that's kind of covered in the bottom of this.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I was just a question. How many pools do we fill?
I kind of set dates for the pools. It's not in our rules and regs, but I have had to tell people, hey, if it's after June 15th, you're, sorry. And we just can't handle 30,000 gallons. I'd like to get something on the books just to have some backing on that.
No, I agree. I was just a question. Do we fill
It's a
5
good
pools, 10
question.
pools?
We have, no, it's not that much, but when
Oh.
you're, we've
Yeah,
got
when you're counting.
we have 2 pools that lie within the water district, the Neptune, and then the new one at the Gables,
Right.
on Dodge Street. They both have been filled with our water off season, which is fine as long as we can plan for it. But we can't fill a 30,000 gallon pool in the middle of summer. It's just not going to happen. We've also filled a number of off-site pools with people transporting water back and forth as well. That's happened a number of times. It's not a common occurrence, but we really need to get something on the books because it just can't happen in the summer. And if I don't have a regulation to go by, then then it's a little easier for me to point to a regulation when, but who knows, the way things are going, we just had another pool, who knows, what.
Well, I think that then maybe it should say, pick the date and with an appointment, because if 3 people for instance, want to have a pool filled on the same day, then that's an issue also.
Yes, that's something I would require 7 days notice easily on that.
Right.
Because we really have to plan for it. When you're, in the springtime, when we're using about 100,000 gallons and someone uses 30 and doesn't tell you, then it's a problem.
Right.
The other thing with the pools is the Intex or the, over the pandemic, those became very popular. They hold anywhere from 3 to 7,000 gallons. So those are a little bit harder to regulate as well. So you do have, those smaller ones, and that's still a fair amount of water. You got to understand that when you're in the middle of summer, and you don't plan for it, then it's difficult. When someone uses 5,000 to 7,000 gallons in a day, then you put yourself in a bad position if you don't know about it, because typically they'll fill them overnight. But that's another thing to consider, is it's not all just in-ground pools. I see these things cropping up now within the water district. I've found a couple now just, driving around and, locating them. So it's also those people who are installing those, which are, those are so prevalent in America these days that there was a chlorine shortage this past summer. So that's how popular those have become. So I can move on to the next bullet point, which is, actual restrictions that the board can do and have rules and regulations, ordinances that ban certain uses of water during our peak time. And I'd like to point to, goes back to the early 90s, your second thing in your packet, it's Article 7, water conservation. This is what's on the books from the early 90s. It's an ordinance which holds a lot of teeth, more than our rules and regs. And it has these different phases, 1, 2, and 3. It's based on certain dates. As you can see, October 1st through March 31st, all uses are allowed. Between April 1st and June 30th, there's these restrictions here. And then phase 3, which is July 1 to September 30th, this is on the books right now. We do not enforce this. All water uses are prohibited with the exception of the following uses: consumption, which would be drinking, toilet operation, showers, and interior building cleaning. That's how restrictive this was in the 90s. And, do we need to go back to this and start enforcing it? My idea is that we rewrite this ordinance. I feel like this is a little archaic. I don't feel like the dates are right. The operations of the plant are different. This was, it's from 1995 or 6, I believe, and a lot's changed since then. So I personally would like to update this ordinance or change it to fit into what our problems are now and to the operations of the facility now, which have changed greatly since this was written. So we do have something on the books, and I believe we could, petition the town council to change this ordinance. And then we'd have to start obviously enforcing it, or we'd need to help the town start enforcing it. As I mentioned before, the water district rules and regs have nothing regarding conservation and restrictions. I'd like to add something in the rules and regulations as well that goes concurrently maybe with changing that ordinance. Obviously ours could be a little bit more detailed and the ordinance could be a little bit more broad brushed, I believe, but maybe they just mirror each other. That would be up to the board and the town council. But we certainly need to add a section regarding our decisions that we make over this winter. So now moving into the next section, which is how far does the board want to go? And this is how tight you want your restrictions to be. And this goes from anything from an outdoor watering ban. Do you do it on, June 15th to Labor Day? Do you just say no weekends and holidays? What kind of penalties, fines, would you have associated with these penalties, with infractions? One idea that I've seen a lot in different communities is not restricting outdoor watering, but actually, coming up with a ban of what is called sprinkler end use, which is, hand watering doesn't use as much water. So if you're outdoor watering, there is no sprinkler end use, which is where I would, turn on my faucet and set a timer and walk away. And that uses a lot more water if you're watering a vegetable garden or your lawn or anything else. One thing I've also noticed is I have a few water-cooled compressors in the system. And this has always come up because the customer asks, well, why did I use so much water? And I start investigating and I find that they bought a water-cooled compressor. I have at least 2 that I know of in the system. I've had ones that have come and gone. These compressors use god-awful amounts of water. I honestly think we should just ban them. I've seen a single ice machine use well over 1,000 gallons a day, every day. And it just runs and runs and runs and runs. So what it's doing is it's using the water to cool itself rather than, let's say, a fan and a radiator and electricity. I would like to educate the ones that have them, but B, also throw something in the rules and regulations to ban those. That's something that's easy. Now, a harder decision that the board might have to make is to ban new or existing irrigation systems. In my opinion, using reverse osmosis drinking water to water your lawn when we're having water capacity issues is not a proper use of that water. I have, Susie, thank you. This is Milford, Mass, which is, in kind of, it's on the 495 Beltway, has done just this. And you can see on the screen, they have banned any new ones from existing, and you can't use any ones that are existing, or you can't install them. And I have had no knowledge of, and I've discussed this in meetings with Mary Ann, and the water district nor the town really had any knowledge of any of these going in, whether it be in the water district or outside the water district. You don't really need a building permit to put one in, except for the plumbing connection, which is difficult to, it's difficult to police a simple plumbing connection into a house because it's a very small plumbing job. So I know of at least 4 irrigation systems that run off our water, and none of them I was made aware of that they were being put in. They just kind of showed up, and I saw lawn sprinklers one day. So we need to get a handle on those systems before there's either more, and it would be up to the board to possibly ban the use of the existing ones in between certain dates, and also to ban any new ones. And I believe we would possibly have the power to do that. And then what Sandra brought up, pool filling, date restrictions and rules. Like I said, that's kind of already in place, but it's not on the books. It's been a practice of mine, but I would like to get something on the books for pool filling date restrictions so that I have some teeth when I tell a customer they can't do it. And then this last bullet point is, do you make the penalty for going over your allocation more? A, you can get revenue out of that. B, it picks up the customer's attention when they go over their allocation. I will be quiet now. I've talked too much at this point, but I'd like the board to start getting their wheels turning with what we're dealing with and how we can get a handle on some of these wasteful uses that we're seeing out there, and just in general fixtures and all of this. And how far do we want to go is a policy decision that the board needs to make over this winter, in my opinion.
And as a point of information, there's a few other pages in your packet just outlining what other areas have done Nantucket and Provincetown. Take some time to look at them because it could give you ideas of what other people have done.
I really like what Provincetown's done. And Provincetown seems to be an analog. They're not on an island, but they're way out on the Cape, and they have water problems. I'll probably go as far as reaching out to their manager and speaking to them about their situation. But Susie, can you flip down to their kind of flyer that they have? And I really like this, whatever we choose to do on these bullet points, but I really like this flyer. This is what you need to put in to the, wherever we want to put it in, whether it's like Sandra brought up, the real estate offices, or, up in places and advertised in the guide, something that kind of encompasses this, this kind of thing. And I really like what Provincetown has done here. And I like their, the rules and regs seem pretty solid. And we can craft ours after some of these other communities that have had similar problems to ours. So Provincetown's the same as us. They probably have a small year-round community, and they explode in the summer, just like we do. They're, so they have similar problems, similar timing, similar everything as us. So this is a good analog for us to kind of follow, or that can lead us down a good path.
So, John, this is Lars. The Provincetown one seems to be more focused on, it looks like residents and businesses, people that live there and work there. I think that we could do something also that helps visitors to the island too.
And Lars, I think that's our biggest challenge is the hotel room stays and the rental house stays. I think getting to those people is difficult. You might be only here for a weekend, you know. How do you get out to those people that water conservation is important to the community?
How about something to do with the ferry, some kind of education on the signage or whatever?
The ferry does
Yeah,
have those spots. They have those, you know, those bulletin boards. We can look into how maybe we could be one of those flyers in the bulletin board, on the ferry bulletin board. Is that what you're suggesting, Diane?
Yes, or don't they run videos now about our sites here? Maybe there'd be something educational about water conservation, what that means to the island, and what people can do to help facilitate that.
Yeah, and
That's a
the
really good
chamber's
idea.
also the chamber's also the first stop for a lot of people getting off the boat. So we should have something here too.
Well, but people also need to understand they have to differentiate between people who are on town water versus, renting a house or being at a place with a well.
Yeah.
And Sandra, I've thought about that a lot. And I think this is something that we should be doing across the board.
Oh, no, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that I feel like we're on an island, and you might just want to start, getting people to get into the idea that there's a limited resource here. And I feel like, we've gotten away from that over the last 25 years or so, 20 years. And I know it's a conservation-minded island in general, but maybe the real estate offices would want to see something on or in or out of the water district anyway. So it's hard to differentiate sometimes, but maybe our visitors could be a little bit more conscientious.
Well, that's for sure. In everything.
John, what's your time frame for having something put together?
If the board wants to decide to change that ordinance, and I spoke with Millie McGinnis, the town clerk, she needs, close to 60 days. We need to really provide a solid something for them. I wouldn't want necessarily the council to take this up. I'd like to provide them with something fairly solid if we choose to go in that direction, and then present it to them as kind of a final or a heavy suggestion. And then they need, I believe, about 60 days. There's a lot of work that goes into it and public notice and everything to get it on the books, let's say before June 15th. So if you count back, we have a fair amount of time, and we have a couple more meetings to come up with something like that. If it's a little late, I don't think it's the end of the day either. But it would be nice to get something on the books by this summer in our rules and regs, and also in our, if we choose to, petition the town council for a change as well. Mary Ann, do you have any thoughts on that?
So with any kind of ordinance change, we do have to advertise 3 weeks. So what happens is it gets to the council agenda. The council then selects a meeting date based on the fact we need to have 3 weeks and we need to get it advertised. If it comes forward with something fairly well buttoned up, I don't see why in the next month or two you can't get something to council, get it advertised, and also get it on the books in time for the summer season. If I can just comment on a couple of things that John mentioned, and his bullets are right on. I did live through in another life a similar situation with water and the steps we took with conservation. And the big piece of this, which you've all touched on, is education. And that's a huge piece of it. I did rent a house here for a number of years, and they weren't on the public water system. It was well, and on the refrigerator was, the same. Welcome to our house. Have a wonderful time. However, keep in mind, water is a limited resources. Therefore, limit the long showers and things of that nature. I also lived through a rebate program that we had. It's a delicate balance of a rebate program. I think this is going back a number of years where we provided a rebate program for folks to switch out their toilets. And that's when many folks had high flush toilets. They had to come in, bring the bill, and then we provided them with the rebate. But some of the things John has pointed out here and the research he's done is excellent. And I think this is the route you need to do. I think if you can take some steps this year and implement some stuff and then keep going forward with it, I think it'll be great. Cisterns are one, but that's an education piece. Let people explain, cisterns, how systems could be beneficial. Also rain barrels, soaker hoses. I didn't know what that was until I lived through it and realized it, as a whole, people ran through the garden and just turned it on. You don't see them because they're in the garden. It's not like a sprinkler or something like that. So a lot of it's education, and I think this is a really good step to start addressing the concerns about the limited supply of water. It's a delicate balance, consumption versus use and the revenue source that you get with high use, but you can work that delicate balance out. And some of the things that are outlined here, I think are great. I think you get involved with interstate navigation, you get the Tourism Council, you get the chamber involved, and also I took to writing to the newspaper, welcoming folks to the island and safety. We can add also water and conservation to that during the summer months.
So maybe a goal for our next meeting, Susie and I can put together, what would be maybe in our rules and regs. And, I think we can list some of these restrictions and maybe we can go through them and say, yes, this is something we might want to do, no, and have discussions based on that. And set the policy that way. Does that seem like a good way to go at this point?
And John, I'll be happy to help you with some of that stuff also and sit with you and Susie.
Yeah. And, like I said, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. There's some good things that other communities have done. So I feel like following them can be good as well. So I think for the next meeting, what I will take on, we'll have something that we can insert into our rules and regs, and then possibly petition the council, and have ready for, let's say the council in, late March, April, or May to change that ordinance. The ordinance is just old and archaic at this point, I believe. It's not bad. It just, something that's that old that really hasn't been changed and not enforced, I think needs to be changed. What's not included in here is that the next section on that is all about Sands Pond. And it says, if the level of Sands Pond falls below, a certain amount, then this happens and this happens as this happens. We're no longer, that's not relevant to our operations at all. So that got dropped from this because it's a little irrelevant, but that needs to be removed because that's not what we do anymore. So at the least we need to get that out of there, but I don't necessarily like the dates that are in here, and maybe we change some of the restrictions and the fines and everything else. So this doesn't need to be reinvented either. It just needs to be changed to fit the dates and the operations of the facility, and maybe add some things like they weren't thinking about pool fills and all that. So I think this has to be more maybe of things you can't do as well, rather than what you can do. This is just what you can do. I think we're looking at what you can't do possibly is also not in here. So.
So I think we lost Pete. He was on the ferry, so he probably hit that dead zone. His phone call dropped. So, Tom, did we get the audio fixed?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, good.
And just for the record, guys, I have to leave for my regularly scheduled meeting at 5:30. So there isn't much left, but I just want to let you know when I drop off, that'll be why. So.
Did I miss something?
Nope, Tom. There we
Dave,
go.
do we need,
Okay.
Dave, do we need to go into closed session?
We don't need to go into closed session. So
Okay.
number 11 can be skipped
So
entirely.
we're in the water financials and aging.
Right.
So you do have the financials through December 31st there. Again, we're moving into the quieter revenue months. If you look again at the penalty and allocation splits, those are always interesting at this time of year. So penalty fees, $36,000 on a budget of 15. The allocation charges about half of what was budgeted. And so shifts in usage and willingness to trade allocation for penalties going on there. So those will be interesting to watch. And then on the expenditure side, again, a little bit more limited as we move through the winter maintenance. If there's something to note in the water company's financial picture, it's really more on the cash flow side, where closing of the USDA loan for the project that was done within the last year really needs to happen in order to put the water company back where it should be in terms of day-to-day cash positions. In terms of aging for both water and sewer, I didn't mention this before, but Susie has replacement reports for each of you that if she hasn't distributed, she will. You're missing the current period charges on the reports that were in your packets. Your historical charges are all there. But.
Very good. Any questions? No? All right, hearing none, we'll go on to the water operations report.
Sure. I have November's report in here too, because we kind of had a weird meeting schedule. I'll just hit on one thing in that, which is of importance, is that I met with Scott Cummings with TNC to discuss the prospect of redrilling well number 6 at some point in time. And we both agreed that if you don't know, well number 6 is on TNC property. It's not on any property that the district or the town owns. And we pulled the easement language and all the maps and went out in the field and really agreed that there's nothing that will keep us from drilling another well there. In fact, there's language that says we're able to drill another well, even though it was a different plan. So we should be able to drill one more well there. And, that's just a piece of the puzzle of getting that permitted. Obviously, if the easement language didn't allow for it, we'd have to go to TNC. But we believe that we can accomplish that without changing the easement language. That's a pretty important piece there for the future of our water security. Moving into December, I just want to point out metered flow is down a fair amount, but that all has to do with the cable drilling from last year. It was very heavy in December, so we lost that revenue, but it's about back at the normal level pre 2019. So something to note is we purchased what is called an RD 7200 underground pipe locator. This is kind of in response to the a lot of the fiber conduit that's gone down and our ability to locate those on our own if we need to. It already has come in handy. We got trained on it. And the more of those that are on the island and people know how to use them, the better it is. But it's already come in handy during some projects. So if we have to go fix a leak or what have you, we're able to locate some things before we break them. And I'm not about to go around the island breaking a bunch of fiber. And I know they're getting into the dig safe thing, but if there's something I've learned living and working on this island is sometimes you got to take care of yourself and you got to do it yourself. And sometimes it's an emergency and you got to know. And I do not want to go around breaking fiber when we're fixing water leaks, because it's going to be a pain in someone's butt. We spent a lot of time in December trying to locate a rogue leak. This is another kind of portion to the water conservation, is that actually leaks are a huge part of lost water. And I've spent my entire career getting customers to replace derelict lines, and I still continue to do so. But we got one more domestic line not repaired, but replaced after this had been leaking for months. I think it's been leaking since the summer. It was just very difficult to find as it wasn't surfacing. And that was completely not repaired, but replaced by the owner, brand new, which finishes something that I started in 2007 with this private area. So that was very nice. A new water service was installed at 1010 West Side Road. That is something that we approved at our last meeting, and they're now on town water. It's a residence across the street from the Legion and Legion Park. On the High Street, this is kind of old news, but on the High Street Payne Road replacement project, the project is essentially complete. The resident engineer came out. We did a bunch more measurements for as-built. D'Ambra came back and raised 4 manholes that we deemed that were sitting a little too low on High Street. There is 2 punch list items. There's 2 sidewalk pieces missing on Water Street, and we're working with the contractor to get that done this spring. I don't think it's going to happen this winter, but hopefully before summer we will get that done. But I would call it complete, which is great. So we'll move on to the next one, which is the SCADA system, which I am currently working on, the electrical engineer, to get that out to bid for next winter or fall, let's call it. Any questions on that?
Any questions for John? Hearing none. Is David still with us, or has he gotten off?
He is just, oh, there he is.
I'm still here for the moment.
Have we time to go into the tax sale?
So we don't have to, there's not a substantive update for that.
All right, all right.
A
So that'll be left for,
small enough update,
go ahead, John.
not to warrant a closed session, we decided. No.
All right, all right. So is there any public comment? I don't think we have a lot of public with us.
We lost most of them.
You lost
Yeah.
If
Chris.
not, how about a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All
All in
right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Adjourned we are.
Thank you,
Nice to
everybody.
see everyone.
Stay well,
Thank you.
stay
Thank
safe,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well,
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.